let's get right to it. So, who we have here are Alex Blackard and Graydon Slasher. We've got um, we've got Cool Breachings. It's a fun holiday name, a little take on Emrakul through the Breach combo. As you can see, Alex is already set with the primary kill piece of that deck, and Graydon here is doing what Ad Nauseam does, which is setting himself up to go off with that kill piece. Alex doing much the same right now, using Serum Visions to set himself up. Serum Visions is kind of just a stand-in for him. You may remember Alex from the many times he's hosted and commentated our streams. I talked to him before the match, and he said that Serum Visions is really not what he wants to be playing, but kind of has to use that cantrip. He really prefers Opt over it. What he's going to be able to do is... Oh, and we've got a Phyrexian Unlife here. He really wants to be playing Opt and then using Snapcaster Mage to get that back. What that's going to allow him to do is make sure that he's not drawing an extraneous Emrakul or an extraneous Through the Breach, and just giving him that ability to power through his deck a little bit better. He wants to get his spell pierces exactly when he wants them, his lightning bolts, electrolyze, etc., etc. Path to Exile doesn't hurt either. In this match, probably not going to be as valuable. So Graydon is pulling out a Pact of Negation. Off that transmute with Teleria West. Going to give him a little extra redundancy to make sure that this Ad Nauseam goes off without a hitch. So Alex gets that Snapcaster in without any value at end of turn, but he's got to make sure that Graydon has as few opportunities as possible to use those life, or to use his life total as a resource. And of course he can get it in before that Pact of Negation, because Graydon does not have the requisite mana to pay for it, lest he lose the game. So Alex kind of guaranteed to get that in at that point in time. Graydon using the new edition Opt in this Ad Nauseam deck. It's not something I've seen before, at least live in person, at end of turn. Smooth out those draws a little bit. And here we go, Ad Nauseam. He's got 28 life to play with. Let's see how Alex responds. Oh, and he responds by scooping it up. Alright, let's head to the sideboard cam. So chat, got some minimal interaction going on, so let's get us started off. Who are you rooting for in this match? What are you looking forward to seeing? Perhaps that's just not a turn 5 scoop, but both of these decks very, very cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing Alex through the breach that Emrakul, and just slam in there, get those lands off the table. Make sure that Graydon has a really, really, really big hill to climb up to get back in the game. Of course, the Ad Nauseam deck traditionally plays the Lotus Blooms, as many of you know, and so when that's suspended, getting to use that in order to produce the mana he needs for Ad Nauseam is really going to help with, you know, Emrakul smashing through on the board, because if those come off suspension, then he's not dead yet. Yeah, this is indeed going to be tough for Alex. What he sides in, not exactly clear. Alright, looks like they're shuffling up and ready to go to game 2. We've got Graydon up 1-0 on the match. Alex still trying to make some last-minute decisions here on what he brings in. I think he's probably going to be taking out some of his ineffective counterspells. Graydon looks like dabbing a little bit, making Alex can't be happy about that, really rubbing that game 1 victory in his face. Graydon's all smiles here. Very favorable matchup for him. I think just sticks to the plan and hopes that nothing that Alex brought in manages to slow him down in any way. Getting off to getting the play in this game is going to be huge. The first player who's able to you know, either hit that through the breach, or the first player to hit the Ad Nauseam is pretty much going to determine how this match goes. Decks exchanged. Almost. And we're off to the races. Graydon, of course, using that next level tech to put his hand out there, make sure it's the optimum 7-card hand. Looking at it pensively. We see Alex with a good mana base there in the first 3 cards. Looks like we're going to fire off a Serum Visions here. Alright, chat, what are we thinking? Is Alex being on the play this game enough to get him through? Or is Ad Nauseam just too bad of a matchup? Oh man. As Alex chuckles to himself as Graydon drops 2 Lotus Blooms. Alright, Alex picks up a Through the Breach. but that's still not going to be able to race those Lotus Blooms. Graydon does have the Ad Nauseam in his hand, and this could be another quick game in our feature match. Boom. Down to 2. So we need to check here if Graydon has a Pact of Negation in his hand. Because without that, Alex is going to be able to use his Cryptic Command on that ad nauseam if Graydon doesn't have the counterspell backup here. So he passes back. Alex has the pieces he needs. He's got the Through the Breach, and he's got the Emrakul. He's also got a Cryptic Command and the mana to play it right now. So these come off with 3 lands on board and 2 Lotus Blooms. That is ostensibly 9 mana for the turn. Alex thinking about how he wants to order his interactions here. And Graydon has got an Angel's Grace in his hand as well. This is going to be real tough for Alex. And we may be on to a very quick featured match. Exit for Alex. And there we go, the Ad Nauseam. So we have a Cryptic hitting the board, letting him know that it is targeting the Ad Nauseam. And sending that Lotus Bloom back into exile. So, doesn't quite work out for Graydon this time, and this looks like it's going to hurt. As Alex might be able to hit this Through the Breach this turn, and that means big sister Emrakul's hitting the board, and those lands are going to go bye-bye. And so Emrakul is not going to be able to knock out all of Graydon's life total. However, knocking it down to 5 is going to mean that he doesn't have a whole lot to play with when it comes to Ad Nauseam. And it hits, and he swings, and goodbye lands. I believe that Lotus Bloom should stay suspended. Graydon, Alex, very excited that that worked. Graydon, all smiles himself, not too upset that his plans went awry, but with only 5 left to play with, and I believe Alex having a Snapcaster Mage in hand, is probably going to drop that at end of turn and just hope against all hope that he top decks a Lightning Bolt. Alright, well, we are back in 5 mana territory. Oh, no. So, that remand will send the Lotus Bloom right back to Graydon's hand, comes right back down on the board, and we're going to count down from 3 one more time. So he has the Phyrexian Unlife. He's got an Angel's Grace. Looks like a red card and a white card also. There goes a Snapcaster Mage Opt, exactly what Alex was excited about earlier, getting that instant speed, end of opponent's turn card selection advantage, and we're 3 turns away from Snapcaster ending this game. Of course, Graydon has his Angel's Grace in hand and a Phyrexian Unlife as well, so won't exactly end the game in 3 turns, but it's not going to look good. Ad nauseum is going to be hard to hit the threshold of spells that he needs to draw to end the game for Graydon. Counting down to 2, and another Phyrexian Unlife. A little redundant. A little too redundant as Graydon picks up his card. So Alex, able to do his cool breachings, gets that Emrakul on the board, and just starts chipping away with Snapcaster. So the Emrakul, as you saw in this in this game, did not end it immediately, but unfortunately it doesn't give Graydon a whole lot to play around with. So these guys are going to go back to sideboarding and figure out if they need to make any other changes here, as they are at 1-1. This one is for all the marbles, all the first round marbles at least. Alright, chat, we've got 8 viewers, so go on ahead and check in the chat. Let us know who you're rooting for, and go ahead and give me a percentage breakdown of who you think is going to take this match home. Graydon is going to be on the play this game, and as we saw in Game 1, pretty big advantage. So Alex was able to get his Through the Breach into Emrakul off on turn 5 after a cryptic command, and take this game home pretty much because he was on the play here. So I think if I had to give the advantage, I would give it to Graydon here. Matchup in general is just it's fairly better for him, I would say. Okay, getting back to the action, we can see in Graydon's hand that he does have the Ad Nauseam. He does have a... Well, the Gemstone Mine certainly helps. But he's got a Lotus Bloom as well, and oh, he forgot to put it on suspend, and he might be kicking himself after this match because both of those are going to take another turn to resolve. Ouch. We get a Pentad Prism on the battlefield, which should dull the pain at least a little bit, but that extra security of having the Lotus Blooms out there is really nice. Oh, okay, so and we can see that play might actually cost Graydon the game, as Alex has both of the pieces he needs. He has Through the Breach, he has the Emrakul, he's got an Electrolyze for some card draw if he needs it. It doesn't look like he has red mana at this point. Oh no. Yeah, well, so he has a Flooded Strand, so he has the ability to go get the red mana, and he might just have to throw that Electrolyze at Graydon's face and hope that he draws into some lands to get that turn 5 Through the Breach off. Alright, Graydon going for it. And no Spell Pierce from Alex. Alex looks like trying to read the Pentad Prism and see what he's working against, but... Alright, Graydon going off. We'll get an updated life total for you here. Graydon going down to 13. Hit several lands in a row. Another ad. Let's see. Graydon setting aside the lands, it looks like, so he doesn't have to filter through those to see what he's working with. Oh, and he moves to discard. Pitches all of that stuff and decides that he's going to go for it again a little bit later. As he's not going to be able to cast his payoff spells there in the end, which has got to hurt, given that Alex now has the mana up and available for that remand, and at the end of turn he's going to be able to hopefully filter a little bit closer to getting another mana source and hit that Through the Breach. Pentad Prism, not a card you see a whole lot outside of Cube or Ad Nauseam, particularly in Modern, but definitely did some work last turn, and even though no charge counters left on it, those Lotus Blooms are coming off of Suspend next turn, and that Ad Nauseam is back in Graydon's hand. So, Alex, I think, oh, Pact of Negation. So, when those Lotus Blooms come off Suspend, Graydon is going to stack his triggers such that he can crack those in response to Pact of Negation and not lose the game. Always, I'm always a big fan of that, not losing the game. And will still be left with 4 mana plus, I'm assuming that he has at least one land in his hand to make another go at Ad Nauseam this turn. Oh, doesn't even have to. Instead, he placed the Angel's Grace to essentially counter his death trigger off of his counterspell. And Graydon explaining that to Alex now. Alex looks very disappointed. If he has a cryptic command, you still got to think that, and he doesn't. He has the remand though, and that remand is not going to help against that Angel's Grace, as Graydon can just cast it back again. So, something you'll probably see quite often, players explaining the stack to each other here, and all the intricacies of the interaction. Alex begrudgingly accepts Graydon's explanation of how the Pact of Negation, Lotus Bloom, Angel's Grace amalgamation just worked at the beginning of that upkeep. So, looks like Alex uses the remand on one of those Lotus Blooms. So that will keep him off 3 of his mana. Yeah, it looks like they rewound the game a little bit, so so Alex had a chance to use his remand when one of those Lotus Blooms came off. And the Ad Nauseam hits. And here we go. Let's see if Graydon can make it happen. Oh. And there it is. So our match 1 just wound up, and that interaction is getting explained again, clearing up a little bit of confusion. Alex saying, look what I had. Look, Emrakul is coming next turn. Look at these cards I had that would have helped too. Gotta be a little bit frustrated, especially when you lose to an interaction that you didn't quite realize worked like that. Graydon and Alex showing off to each other their sideboard choices. Graydon has the Dragonlord Dromoka coming out of the sideboard. His deck is absolutely capable of casting it. What with the Lotus Blooms, his Gemstone Mines, and plenty of other mana sources available. But what that does is prevents his opponents from playing spells on his turn. So when it's time for him to go off with Ad Nauseam, he can do it without any trouble whatsoever. And after game 1, almost everybody has already boarded out all removal that they have, as the deck traditionally doesn't run many, if all, or any, or many creatures or planeswalkers. So it's going to be real hard to get rid of that Dragonlord Dromoka. We didn't see it come out, but it's a nice little tech to prevent any counter spells or disruption that your opponent's going to throw at you. Looks like Alex showing off the cards that came out, those 4 Path to Exiles, which, yeah, not doing a whole lot against Ad Nauseam. And, I don't know, some flip card. So with this deck, that could have either been Baby Jace. Alex has told me he's a big fan of Search for Azcanta, and that fits in very nicely with the overall architecture of his deck. So hopefully he'll come down here and give us a little walkthrough of what his strategy was and his take on that interaction there. So real quick, I'm going to switch over to a little intermission screen and